Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and no, you are not having deja vu. I realized, oh wow, you know what? There were 7 whole months worth of books that I never got a chance to talk about on this channel, so I'm going to talk about the first 7 months of books in 2023 that you heard nothing about on Licator, super rapid fire style. So you already know that I read 238 books, except Goodreads says it's 239, and no, I can't find the discrepancy, so we're gonna ignore that. The shortest book that I read was during my Apple Hell video. The longest book, 980 pages, Kingdom of Ash. Also, lots of tears, but they were earned and deserved. Please shelved with Crimson Crisp, the reason that I hated the entire month of September. And apparently my average star rating for 2023 was 3.8, which is completely inaccurate because you can only give whole stars in here, and I pretty much always round up because I'm nice and I love authors. Alright, the 2023 books that you heard nothing about. If I have a special edition, I'll be holding it up, starting with An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. This is the 3rd book in the Bridgerton series. This is about Benedict. Now, if you watch the series and you remember Benedict, he's the fun one, not in this book. In this book, B stands for boring and buttoned up. This is sort of a spin on a Cinderella tale. This is not a great book. Apparently, these show creators agree with me because they're skipping right on over to the 4th, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is Penn and Colin's story. Penn has a glow up, we get a time skip. We'll see what they do with it. I'm looking forward to it because, quite frankly, I think Penn is way more exciting than most of the Bridgerton sisters themselves. That being said, I haven't read the rest of the series, but this was way better than this. Next up, we have Legendborn, which I loved. This was a great Arthurian retelling. So much fun. We've got dark academia, a girl who discovers she has powers. There's a whole, reincarnation thing going on at a school setting. Lots of magical powers being learned. Reincarnation is not my favorite way of doing Arthurian legend, but you know what? We see it a lot, and I will take what I can get when it comes to Arthurian legend minus Silver and the Bone. Ouch. This was great. The Reunion by Kayla Olson, I didn't hear a ton of people talk about. This was a book of the month box, and it was so much fun. This is like one of those soap opera 18-esque shows that decide to come back together for a reunion, and it's great. These 2 old co-stars always had a crush on one another, and they're coming back together. Second chance romance mixed with Hollywood. Is it the next great American novel? No. Was it oodles and oodles of fun set in super soapy Hollywood? Yes. Next, I read Clockwork Angel. This was my very first Cassandra Clare. I saw the Shadowhunter show. I will not be reading the books. This was delightful. I was not expecting the whole Dickensian era thing going on, Victorian England thing, and this is the start of the very best love triangle I've ever seen done in books in my entire life. I have lived a love quadrangle mess. Someday I'll tell you that story. I will, because I ended up married from it. This is the best I've ever seen it done in a book. This is the only time I've ever seen it done convincingly and well in a book. And I freaking loved it. I can't wait to read her next series, The Last Hours one. Never Ever Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez. Literally, I picked up only because of the title. This is YA technically, but it is very, very old YA. This is about 2 girls who are on a dating show trying to get back with their ex, except they think, you know what? Maybe each other might be a little more interesting than their ex. Highly recommend. Way funny, way cute, spicier than expected. Are we sure this was YA? I swear to God I voted for it in the Goodreads YA Choice Awards. Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, I barely remember. This is kind of like a You've Got Mail vibes thing going on, except it's 2 rival deli owners' children, and they're trying to do PR, all social media as tweeting back and forth. You get the gist. Very young YA. I don't know if anyone who watches this channel is going to be super into it, but if you have nieces or nephews or kids, this is a great one for them. Super fun, super fresh, super wholesome if you take my drift. Birds of Paradise by Diana Abu Jabbar. This is a super random arc that I found in a thrift store. We get to see a girl who runs away from a pretty wealthy family, so we see the disparity between the homeless people in Florida versus the very wealthy people in Florida. It was pretty well written. It was very interesting, but it was kind of all over the place. All of the potential was there, but it needed a serious polish. I don't know what to give it as a review, but it was compelling, and it made me think so much about the homeless communities that exist in America. Claire McIntosh, The Last Party. This is a great book to read around New Year's. This is a murder mystery. We have a, I think she's a DCI over in England. This is about a very rich, wealthy, set of houses on a lake because it's New Year's and everyone's on break. Everyone is kind of around, the lake's frozen, and of course there's a murder and a big investigation, and of course not everyone is who they seem. Some people are poor, some people are wealthy, blah, 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 blah. I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of twists and turns that I didn't see coming. There was a lot of intertwining drama between these families who supposedly only see each other together over the summers and stuff. I thought this was going to be a series where like we continue following this community. No, we're just following the detective and not my favorite character in the book, I'm sorry to say. Cruel Illusions by Margie Bustin. This was Fairy Loot, and holy cannoli. Yeah, you tell me I was not drooling all over this book. So this one is about a girl whose mom was killed by vampires, and one day she sees these kids who are messing around doing some magic, and they have like this magic act, and she's like, this is sus, I think you've got real magic, and they totally do. So she follows them, and there's this deadly magic competition in this amazing castle. It was amazing. This magic competition was fantastic. The vampires were great. There were little twists everywhere. Of course, there's a terrific romance. This is Carvel. Take away the purpley writing, narrow it down a bit, and give like some serious deadly consequences and add vampires. You have got Cruel Illusions. Read this book. I loved it. Why were people not flipping over this? I'm still baffled. Next up, Icebreaker. We've got an ice skater and we've got a hockey player. There's a problem with an ice rink and they end up having to share an ice rink. This is enemies to lovers set at a college. Pretty dang spicy and smutty. It did really, really, really take me back to college. I don't skate though. Dear God, I once sat on a toe pick. Blood on ice everywhere. Don't put me on ice. In the end, the writing was kind of let me down a little bit. It was a debut. For what it was exactly what it needed to be. This is The Beauty of Darkness, and I can't tell you a ton about this chunker. I flipped for The Kiss of Deception. This is the first book in the Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson. This is probably, you know, the series, as this is about a princess who runs away on her wedding day, and she ends up getting followed behind by the prince, who is really pissed off, and then an assassin who's sent to kill her, and you don't know the entire time while she's staying in this village with her friend which guy is which, because they're both like in disguise as is she and her friend, and it's amazing, and she's falling for them both. You didn't know who was who, and that was the mystery. You're like, oh my god, that's a clue, it's him, it's him. It ends on this super cliffhanger. You follow all three of their stories, and it gets super political and dramatic, and the love story is great. Definitely recommend. Do not recommend The Cheerleaders by Keza Thomas. It's a story about a town where a cheerleader gets murdered by her boyfriend and he's off in jail, and then one of her cheerleader friends is like, I don't think he did it, and it's like this big mystery, and she wants to like bring back the cheerleaders. That's all I remember. And you know why that's all I remember? It was not that memorable. I've read so many better mysteries. If you're gonna read a YA murder mystery, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and there are other better ones too. This was just like, okay. Lunar Love also disappointed the heck out of me by Lauren Kung Jessen. We have two Asian business people, a guy and a girl, and they both come up with the same basic premise for a dating app, one based on your Chinese zodiac love signs. I was so intrigued. I thought it was gonna be so exciting seeing how these different signs are compatible and what works and what doesn't, and you don't hear anything about any of it. It's just like family drama and the two of them. I didn't need another generic love story. I read this on the Lunar New Year. I was so excited for it, and no. Then I finished off the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, Clockwork Princess. Dear God, grab the tissues. Best love triangle. The writing was great, the twists were great, the magic was great, the time period was great. I was hooked. I read these in like 2 days. Loved. Next up was Wintersong by S.J. Jones. This is a take on Labyrinth. We end up with this girl who gets kidnapped by the Goblin King, and she is stuck underground with him in the dead of winter. I'm pretty sure I gave it 4 stars. It kind of felt like something was just missing, but the writing was great. We don't get enough Labyrinth retellings. Okay, give me a Goblin King any day. You've seen Jareth in those pants. I know you have. If you are looking for a fantastic, true fairy tale, this book will give it to you, and you're gonna get those like classical music, Beethoven, Mozart, all those little like hints, which I studied classical music, so like this was tailor-made for me. The next book, by the way, is about her brother and a male magical romance. Leanne Moriarty, Apples Never Fall. I always forget her books take place in Australia. Why is that? This is about a mom who goes missing, the 4 siblings who are concerned for her, and they're hesitant to call the police because daddy was the last one to see her, and they're concerned, oh god, maybe he had something to do with it. Everybody had their own very complete story to tell that all wove in and out. I know this is not a lot of people's favorites, but for some reason for me, it was a good one to sink into. And the twist? It was a choice. But you know what? It ended up just making me laugh and be like, you know what? That tracks. I kind of love you for doing that to us. You know what twist I absolutely freaking hated? The one in the Vacation by T.M. Logan. This is about a bunch of families who all go on vacation together with their children. They all go to this like stupid giant island, shared like a bunch of houses or a house, and one wife is convinced that her husband is cheating on her with another wife of the families, and I'm not gonna call it a dumpster fire because they're all in like this big beach jungle place, I'm gonna call it a giant jungle fire because that's what it is. We can do better. Don't read this book. Do read Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt if you want to hear from an octopus named Marcel who knows his life is slowly ticking down as he's living it out in this aquarium and bonding with this amazing elderly lady who is missing her dead son. And Marcel kind of knows what happened, but he can't tell her because he's a freaking octopus. This will just make you think about life so hard and you will cry, and I sure as heck cried. And there are other people you are following and they all come together in this beautiful way. If you want a literary book and you haven't read Remarkably Bright Creatures yet, it's wonderful. Grab tissues. You can also grab tissues for It Ends With Us, because it may make you cry, but for completely other reasons. This is not a romance, my friends. This is about a toxic relationship and an exploration of how cycles repeat themselves when it comes to bad relationships. Go into this looking for toxicity. If you do that, you might enjoy it. I kind of did. Colleen Hoover does not write romance, but I'm betting if you have found my channel, you already know this. The Luxe by Alan Godberson. This is about two sisters who live in kind of like the Gilded Era. They are in America and they're really extremely wealthy, living in this amazing high society life. This basically is Gossip Girl mixed with Bridgerton, but the golden age, except there's this big mystery throughout the rest of the series. I'm only 2 books in, but I do plan on finishing it because you know what? It is juicy and gossipy and ridiculous and frothy. You get the clothes and the drama, and I totally am enjoying it. Next up, Rachel Hawkins' The Villa. It's about a dual timeline thing where we have 2 people who go and stay at a villa where a murder once took place, and they're kind of like writing about it now. It was good. I enjoyed it. You will probably enjoy it if you like Rachel Hawkins, but it just didn't hit the 5-star mark. What did hit the 5-star mark? A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This was about a girl whose dad is in jail for a bunch of murders that took place in her hometown, and now that murders are occurring there again and like he's still freaking in jail, she's like, the writing, perfection. The mystery, perfection. The characters, brilliant. This is not thriller writing. This is literary writing done in a thriller. Let's read my review. Connects past murders or crimes to the present. It had twists that kept coming, and I could not put this book down until I had finished. The little clues and breadcrumbs were there. Love it when authors do that, but the ending was still so satisfying. Did I fall for all the red herrings? Totally. Next, we had What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. This was about friendship of these teenage girls who used to believe in magic and had this magic spell they had going in the woods, almost like ritualistically, called the Goddess Game, and now they're all grown up. And there was a murder in the woods where all this was going on, and these girls apparently have the secret to kill for. That's the description. This book got so under my skin, and I was loving it. It's like, is there actual magic? Was this guy actually a serial killer? Did they frame him? Did they do it? What is going on? And then we get to the end, and I hated the ending so much. You had the potential, so you took it and you threw it all away. So 5 stars up until the end. Why Kate Alice Marshall? Why? Next up, we had A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Eiland. This was the book that I was talking about that I totally fell in love with. The girl's sister was sick, so she decided to enter a tea brewing competition at the palace, but tea is actually like magical in this world, and if she wins, she can get a favor and save her sister. And of course, there's a prince and love, and the writing just is delightful. It is comforting and magical, and it is written like a fairy tale. Absolutely highly recommend. Then we had Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and this was darker than I usually go. We had a girl who gets into Yale because she has some sort of powers and she can control all of these super secret societies that do actually have magic, and then her mentor like disappears and things get bad. I still haven't read Hellbent. Totally want to, and it just feels like I have to read it in the fall. I also have this gorgeous copy of The North Wind. Tell me this is not stunning. Like, look at these little middle brackets. This is based on Scottish folklore, which, like, so obsessed. How the 4 winds are brothers and they've been scattered to the 4 ends of the world, never to meet again, because the 4 of them combined are too powerful to be together. And this is based on the North Wind. He's known as the Frost King of the world, but his name is Boreas, and he is basically the wind of, like, winter. He takes a bride back with him because he needs her human powers to help control, like, this gate in his world. It is very Hades and Persephone, taking the enemies to lovers, kidnapping side of that myth. I enjoyed it very, very much. I thought the spice was pretty darn good. I did think that it got a little long in places, but honestly, this is what I love to read when it comes to romance. I think that this series is going to be great, and each one apparently is going to function as a standalone, so you can choose if you are going to want your winter, spring, fall, or summer wind to be your main man. After this, I finally read Voyage of the Frostheart by Jamie Littler, and I have to say I was kind of disappointed. This has vibes of snow instead of desert, with Vikings on ships that go across the snow with like these monsters underneath it, and this kid who has these powers that can help them like deal with these monsters, and they're voyaging to try and find his like long lost parents. That's the gist of it. It reads very, very, very young. For me, this was just total pure adventure. There was nothing for me to cling to. It was like Miss Romance, and I also thought that some of the plot points, the pacing, didn't work for me. Then Rumors by Anna Galperson, by a thread by Lucy Score. This was a really, really, really funny one. This is about a girl who's a very grumpy boss. This is like a billionaire romance type thing. It has weird veins of like Flashdance in it, because much as she's in the fashion industry, she also has like the dance studio thing. Billionaire romances aren't always my favorite, and this one wasn't pitched perfect for me, but it did have Lucy Score's classic sense of humor. You will enjoy it if you like Lucy Score, I can pretty much guarantee it. After that, I'm gonna combine The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray and The Magnolia Place by Fiona Davis, because they had very, very, very similar vibes. These are both early 1900s. I want to think Carnegie, I want to think Rockefeller. These are the richest, richest, richest men in the world and women who end up working for them inside these special places, museums, as their personal assistants in their own libraries. Each of these women, of course, have their little secrets and little special stories. Highly recommend if you do enjoy historical fiction. These were terrific reads, and you get to see some of these amazing pieces of art and amazing works of literature and in amazing historical buildings. I had a great time reading them back to back, and I feel like I learned a lot too. After this, I read my first Mariana Zapata from Lukov with Love. This is two rival ice skaters. They have never really gotten along, except our girl who's kind of always had a crush on our guy. He's a bit older, and when they finally start working together, the sparks just fly. This is what I wanted. This kind of grows up icebreaker with the enemies to lovers when they finally get together. It is worth the payoff. If you know Mariana Zapata, that's kind of her thing. Long book, slow burn, and then fire. After that, The Summer of Lost Letters. This is about a girl who finds her grandmother. After she passes, she finds in her possessions all of these letters and finds out that her grandmother actually fled the Holocaust. He meets this boy who is the grandson of this guy who she thinks that her grandmother knew, and it turns out this family's really, really wealthy, and she's like maybe kind of falling for the grandson. You get the beach feels, you get some of the historical stuff going on, you get the sweet romance. I really loved it. I know I've talked about, I have some questions for you already. Song of Achilles, if you don't know, this is the romance of Achilles and Patroclus by Madeline Miller, and it will hurt you. You think you know it's going to hurt you. I thought I knew it was going to hurt me because I know the Iliad. I read it. I studied it. I know they both die. We all know they both die. They've been dead for thousands of years. How bad could it be? Worse. It's so much worse than you think it's going to be. It's beautifully written. It's gorgeous. The romance is amazing. Achilles very much is a himbo at times, and I wanted to strangle him. Patroclus, I'm sorry for everything. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. I had never heard about like the red thread of fate before this book. The girl who sacrificed herself and then found everything and more beneath the sea. The idea of these dragons who swam and all this. I had no idea about any of this. I was enchanted, enthralled. This book goes amongst my new like Disney fairy tales. That's where it's at for me. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, I talked about Taylor Jenkins Reid, One True Loves. This is about a girl whose husband perishes in this horrible like helicopter accident, and when she finally gets over him and is getting engaged, he shows up again and is like, hey, I was hanging out on an island eating tree bark. I'm back and I love you. Now pick. Emotional turmoil ahead. And Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. This is like some rich boy romance, I think, and honestly, her sense of humor just did not click with me. We'll try again, Megan Quinn. We'll try again. And Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. This was based on some real life interview that happened between a movie star and some reporter, and apparently they had amazing chemistry. And so this author was like, hey, I'm gonna write a book about that. And it was terrible. They had no chemistry. It wasn't funny. There was no plot. It was just bad. The Paris Apartments. This is about a girl who inherits an apartment in Paris from her grandmother, and in it she finds this amazing elaborate work of art, and it follows a dual timeline of her grandmother who used to deal deal with Nazi Germany. I know, so much fun. I actually really do love these dual timelines. My all-time favorite of these, however, if you're going to try one, is The Paris Secret by Natasha Lester. That is a 5-star book. If you want to try this whole like finding a magical, wonderful treasure trove from your grandparents in the past and finding it linked to Nazi Germany and at what they did to help the resistance, try that one. It was amazing. Spice Road by Maya Abram. This is about a girl whose brother was supposedly accused of like being a betrayer, and tea in this world also does indeed have some sort of magical properties, but when she discovers that he like might be in trouble, she decides to go seek him out and help him. And of course there's a romance. It was so atmospheric, it was so detailed. Everywhere you turn there was just like this little secret that you're discovering, and I loved it. All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. This is about a woman whose baby was taken out of his crib in the middle of the night, and ever since then she cannot sleep. She's completely paranoid. She's constantly like trying to solve this mystery, and she's terrified all the time, and it just made me so tired. I just didn't think the plot itself was as good. I also thought the writing was just a step down from A Flicker in the Dark. Sally Hepworth is usually worth a good 4 stars for me for her domestic thrillers, and this one, I don't know if I enjoyed it as much. It's about a family who lives on a cliff where a lot of people tend to take a leap of faith off of it, or a leap of no faith off of it, shall we say, and the dad is great at talking people down, and one day he does not, and for some reason people are like, wow, if you couldn't talk this one person down, you must have like pushed them. It was a little unbelievable. I didn't necessarily like the entire premise and the story itself. I mean, it was fine. I just didn't think it was one of her better works. I have read things from her that I have very, very, very much preferred. A Taste of Iron and Gold. This is a bodyguard prince romance. This was so intricately done. The politics were amazing. This prince takes the place we usually see of a princess. He finds himself in almost a matriarchal society. He honestly makes this massive mistake one day at court, and he's kind of just like relegated to the background. He's finally like, you know what, fine, I'm gonna take my bodyguard Evermere, and we're gonna go and we're gonna investigate all these break-ins that have been happening to prove my loyalty to my sister the queen, and do that to help her out after I've made such a giant mess of things. But the politics are so intricate and so complicated and convoluted, and he knows this relationship is so forbidden, and so the tiniest touch, the tiniest little glance, everything means so much, and this romance feels so intense between the two of them. Oh my god. Everything feels like a whisper until it finally comes all crashing out, and there's this whole conspiracy, and I loved this book. I thought it was so well done. This was one of the books that finally started breaking me out of this miserable reading slump that I was going through. This was fantastic. The housemaid did not help with my reading slump. This is about a housemaid who is very much like desperate for the wife's life of the house that she's cleaning, and very jealous of the husband and making eyes at the husband. There's a whole big twist, and I just didn't get what everyone else saw in it. I did not think it was that amazing. I really, really didn't. The Liar's Crown by Abigail Owen. This is about a girl who is a twin sister, and it is basically her job to go out when it is too dangerous for the essential queen of the country and take her place in case anything bad happens. And one day the twin, who is not the queen, gets kidnapped and goes off on this wild adventure, and it's this enemies to lovers story, and the entire kingdom unfolds, and she finds out all these secrets she didn't know about, and it is wild and amazing and fantastic. The writing is amazing. The stakes are so high. You're gonna get a bunch of different settings rapid fire. You're gonna see a bunch of magical creatures. You're gonna see all these political alliances. You're gonna see conspiracies. You're gonna see found family. You're gonna see romance. You're gonna see everything you could possibly want. Please read The Liar's Crown. I can't wait to read the second book. Oh, that's when I'll talk about it, when I read the sequel. Ha. Loophole. The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chachki. Look at this, Brady. Just look at this. This reads like a very dark gothic fairy tale. This is not a romance. This is the tale of two best friends and them growing up and creating this imaginary fairyland in their backyard. And the one best friend is very clearly more invested and believing more in this fairyland, and she will do anything to keep from losing it, and she sucks in the other best friend. This is about the husband bringing his new wife, and she's the one who's more invested, back to that original house and trying to slowly discover, this place is really weird. What is going on in this yard? Why is this house so strange? Why does this place feel haunted? You're going back and seeing the original tale of these two friends, and it is haunting and beautiful, and there's a little horror, I'm not gonna lie, and everything is dripping and oozing with honey and magic. If you want the darkest fairy tale you've ever read that combines fairy tales and then takes them and twists them and turns them into this dark, new, haunting thing, I got you. After this, I read In the Weeds by B.K. Borson. This is the second book in the Love Light Farms series. This, yes, does indeed take place in the almost spring on a Christmas tree farm, which is indeed slightly weird. This in fact follows the socialite Instagrammer we saw on the first one, and we find out that she did indeed previously meet someone who works on the farm, and I did enjoy it. It was a good time, but you're never going to do as well on a Christmas tree farm as you are in Christmas time. After that, I read Don't Call the Wolf by Alexandra Ross. Why aren't people talking about this? This is like this crazy Russian folk tale. It's about this dragon that flies in and takes over these woods and slowly turns them into this wild place where monsters are flying out everywhere. But there's this girl who lives in there, Wren, and for some reason she can cultivate this small spot in the wood where she can protect the animals that live there and this tiny village within the wood. But back in what sort of feels like an Imperial Russian type of place, we also have these 10 brothers who it's their job to save everyone from what's coming out of these woods. And there is one brother left, and he is headed back, and he meets up with Wren. Yes, we're having a little romance here. And they go into the forest where they're trying to find this monster thing who can help them in this cottage, and it's called Alessi. We've got a wild queen joining these soldier forces, this brother who's searching for his other brothers, this wild dragon who is nothing like what you expect. Of course it's not. We've got more twists and turns. The writing is incredible. This was amazing. Also, one of those books I was talking about that I wish more people would pick up and talk about. Also, one of the books that more people need to pick up and talk about is The Silver Bough by Lisa Tuttle, and I'm betting you've never heard of this book. It takes place in a town in Scotland, and it all connects Appleton to Scotland is this tiny little land bridge. We have 3 new people coming into town. We have this librarian who's just left the city and she's divorced and she wants a new start. There's also this teenage girl. She's heading over because she has relatives living in Appleton and she wants to go over there and spend the summer researching her family history. And then there's a widow who has decided to purchase this property there that has like a giant orchard on it that's sort of defunct, but it's where her husband and her spent their happiest times, and this is how she's going to reconnect. And then one day there's this earthquake and it cuts the entire place off, and all of a sudden ships aren't arriving with their supplies, airplanes aren't getting there, the internet's cut off, they're not getting newspapers, phones aren't getting signals. People are seeing people who shouldn't be there, people who look like they belong in the past. This handsome stranger shows up all of a sudden. He seems a bit otherworldly, shall we say, and all of a sudden this orchard seems to be waking up. And do you know what place had a really famous orchard where there were, say, golden or silver apples? Avalon. Yeah, we've got some Arthurian legend stuff going on here. This is enchanting. The writing is amazing. Every turn there's some sort of hidden room, hidden art, hidden magic. There's Scottish history everywhere. Could it have used a slight edit? Maybe, yes. But oh my goodness. It was one of the most magical books. I truly felt like I had stepped into a fairy tale. It gave me the same feeling that I had when I read Outlander the first time. No one has heard of this book. No one has talked about this book, and I wish that it was fresher in my mind so I could talk about it better. But all I remember is sitting there reading and going, my God, I would give anything to visit the Isle of Appleton and have this guy begging me to take a bite of his apple and be his true love and rescue this island that so clearly is Avalon. I want to be a part of that magic. After that, I read The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. This is basically the Great British Bake Off, but somebody gets murdered. I heard so much hype about this. I was so excited for this, and then honestly, the twists and turns weren't that great. I just didn't think the writing was that fantastic or the characters were that compelling. I was just a little disappointed by this one. Next up was The Only Survivors. We have 7 students who are getting together every single year in the Outer Banks to sort of reminisce about when they were involved in a school bus crash, and they were the only survivors. One year, things go really, really, really wrong. Like, oh no, probably not everyone's making it out of this reunion. This was another 4-star from Megan Miranda. It's a great read. I love the Outer Banks. I definitely was like looking over my shoulder. It was a good thriller. I enjoyed it. Total solid read. After that, I finally read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Susan can. This is about a girl who was raised in the Celestial Empire by her mom, the moon goddess, only one day she sort of accidentally like uses her powers and alerts everyone that she's there, and she gets sent down to like the celestial kingdom, and she's really unprepared for this. So she's alone, she's afraid, she's unsure what to do. In disguise, she ends up finding the emperor's son, and she ends up like training. She learns like archery, she also learns magic, and of course her ultimate goal is to save her mom and be able to return to the moon. Watching her discover love for the first time, watching her discover her humanity for the first time, watching her discover how to live on her own for the first time, it was just so incredible. And then seeing her get reunited with her mom. Everything about this book was absolute perfection. And yes, I do have the sequel, and yes, you will see me read that, although I've definitely heard it's not nearly as good, so I'm slightly concerned. After that, I read Bow Before the Elf Queen by J.M. Carl. This one was pure fun. I'm matching this today. I was feeling the fun. This is about a girl who is in hiding, and she absolutely does not want to marry the guy that she is supposed to be marrying. And one day she gets discovered, and she's stuck traveling with these like 6 warriors and this guy who's determined to marry her, and the banter is terrific. This is everything you want. That first travel, the first banter, those romantic moments where you're like, they're resisting each other and you know they want each other, and they're back and they're forth, and you know, he's treating her super well, and you're like, you're being an idiot, and it's just, it was fun. It was so much fun. And she's got this big secret why he can't actually love her, and like, you know, it's all gonna work out. It's great. It's so great. I just ordered the next special edition, so I'll be reading that soon, and it's just fun. If you want a fun time, this is a great choice. After that, I read Tacitus, Say Yes to the Marquess. This one is about a girl who's inherited a castle, and she has everything she needs. And then Rafe is sort of this rake and prize fighter, and he's determined that she's going to marry his brother. His brother's too busy to woo her, so he decides he's going to do and set up everything that they need for the wedding. He's going to get her the dress and the flowers and like basically do it all. And he accidentally falls in love with her while he's doing it, and it's hilarious. This one's actually really funny, and that's what I loved about it. The humor in this one set it apart and was totally great. The Debutante series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, Little White Lies and Deadly Little Scandals. I want you to take Pretty Little Liars and just shove it down in the South with debutantes. We have a girl whose grandmother contacts her and is like, hey, I know we kind of shunned you in the family, but you know what? If you come out as a debutante, you're gonna be set for life and you're not gonna have any woes anymore. And she's like, well, how do I turn that down? Well, you know what? These debutantes, there's a reason they're holding those shovels in the second picture, Deadly Little Scandals. This is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It is definitely YA though, but if you enjoyed the Brothers Hawthorne whole series, this one really isn't any more YA than that one. After that, I read The Monster's Den by Gillian West. This is about a girl who ends up having a half-shifter baby because she had fun with a shifter. And so she goes and finds this like safe haven for people who need protection in her situation, and of course falls in love with like an alpha and like all his friends and his pack, and it's found family, it's smutty, sexy deliciousness. There's a little more to it. There's a lot of plot. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of pieces to it. If you're looking for something in that general genre, I absolutely recommend The Monster's Den by Gillian West. This was a step above. Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. I finally read it. I heard that there was going to be an end coming to the series, and sure enough, that is happening this coming year. My god, it was amazing. It's so adorable, and it just makes my heart sing. Okay, I'm done. Sorry. So this is Olivia Wildstein's House of Beating Wings. We have a lot of like Celtic kind of language hidden, and look at these end pages, okay? Amazing, right? Loved these. So this is about a girl who's a half fae, and she's kind of in love with the fae prince, and obviously this can't actually happen, but he's leading her on, and she's totally letting him and totally believing him, and one day she sees his prophecy. If you free the 5 Iron Crows, you will be queen. That's the prophecy. And she's like, great, fantastic, that must mean I'm going to marry the prince. Oh sure, yeah, that's exactly what it says. No, it's not. We know we need specificity. So she does this, and once she frees one, it can kind of turn into like this crow thing and like help her along, and she's like, oh good, I now have a little sidekick who can talk to me. This is so much fun. And she does free all 5, but you know what, it doesn't actually say that she's going to become the queen by marrying the prince. That's not exactly what's going on here, and of course chaos ensues. This was great. The writing was fantastic. I was completely invested. It did things I did not expect. The banter between her and this freaking crow had me cackling. Crowing? It had me crowing. She has this amazing heart of gold. This is one of the sea creatures that lives in the water near her, and of course she's super compassionate and like she treats it like a little pet, which is fantastic. I've already started reading the next book, even though I don't have the next special edition of it yet. This definitely deserves your attention if it sounds good to you, because I don't think it'll disappoint. One of the Girls by Lucy Clark you're going to be hearing about from me soon. Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert took me 2 years and 3 tries to read, because the descriptions of fibromyalgia and chronic pain were just a little too close to home. They were a little too accurate, and I had to be in the right mental health space to finish it. And you know what? If it's doing bad things to your mental health and it's hurting you to read it, you probably don't need to. Simone St. James is one of my favorite thriller writers, because she does what other authors sort of hint they're going to do or threaten they're going to do and then never actually do. She pulls in the supernatural. The Sun Down Motel has 2 time periods, which is something I always love. Viv works there in like, I think, the 1980s in this rundown motel that's right outside of New York City, and then 35 years later her niece goes and follows in her footsteps and decides to try and do the same to see what happened to her aunt. We see the same like spooky things start to happen. I thought it was fantastic. I was not sure what was happening. It was so haunting. We get to see a little bit how technology has changed and how that helps our new girl figure out what was going on. I gave it 5 stars. After that, I read The Book of Lost and Found by Lucy Foley. This one was about a girl who finds a painting of like her grandmother who was the ballerina, and it looks like it was by this really famous painter, and she goes and finds him when he's staying on this island to solve the mystery, and of course his handsome grandson's there. You get the picture. It was rambly and could have used an edit. I don't think it was bad by any means, but it was not her finest work or the finest example I've seen of someone finding a painting and discovering their past that way. We Are The Brennans by Tracy Lang. This was basically a study on an Irish family living in America now. They own a traditional Irish pub, and they are these wild siblings who are completely interconnected and totally connected with their parents still, and I loved this book. We have a second chance romance. This was everything I wanted to read around St. Patrick's Day. I thought that the character development was exactly what Tracy Lang wanted to give us. From this book, I'm very much assuming she is Irish heritage. The only thing I've ever enjoyed by Holly Black is Book of Night. I thought her take on shadow magic was fantastic, and how you can give away your shadows, sell your shadow, use shadows to manipulate people and change things about them. I fear we're never getting a sequel, because I think I'm the only person in the whole wide world who liked Book of Night. And now Holly Black has gone back to Elfheim and may remain there forever, because that is what people want from her. Viola Ross, Blood Mercy. And this is the Blood Grace series, and if you were looking for a very slow-moving, very political book that is supposedly enemies to lovers but isn't really about vampires and humans and doesn't have too much horror despite the vampirism, please enjoy. It's about time for me to grab one as my before bed read now again, I think. If I could pick one book that totally flew under the radar last year, and it was an absolute crime, like someone should be in handcuffs for this, it was Nightbirds by Kate J. Armstrong. This book is about 3 girls. One of them is terrified of her own magic. One of them is a part of the glittery, glitzy society, and the other one comes from the dark, dirty underworld and kind of has like a secret relationship with like the queen of one of the gangs, which I think is just amazing. What's special about these girls is that they are Nightbirds, and Nightbirds, they all get a code name based on the magic that they have, like Lark or Sparrow. And how their magic works is that they can share their magic with anyone, but they have to share it with a kiss. And this kiss, it can't be taken, it has to be given freely. And the only people who can afford these kisses, of course, are the very, very wealthy. And the way it works is like, maybe if you get a kiss from Sparrow, you can dart around really, really, really fast, but it's gonna wear off after 24 hours. Or if you get a kiss from Lark, maybe your voice is super honeyed and you can convince anyone to do anything for the next day or 2. Maybe you will be really lucky for a day, or maybe you'll be super memorable for a day. Or maybe everyone will forget you for a day and you'll be able to sneak around and do whatever you want. But unfortunately, there's this wild uprising with these crazy priests because, I bet they're jealous. I'm just saying. boys don't get magic in this world. They can just borrow it. These priests like sort of take over. There's fires everywhere. Of course the girls find this amazing underground society and all of these wild secrets about their powers and other night birds and the history of the night birds. And it is the most unbelievable fantasy in the way that it just cracks open and you see this world that starts out so tiny in this one small building and then it just explodes into this unknown underground town where magic is just flowing through the veins of the city. And my God, this was incredible. I could not put this down. I've read this in one day. The characters are incredible. The character growth is incredible. We get romance of all kinds. We get unexpected romance, enemies, false romance, forbidden romance, sapphic romance. This was one of my favorite reads of the entire year last year. Please read this book. I promise you it is worth every moment of your time. After this, I read The Inheritance of Orcadia Divina by Zoraida Cordova. This is a woman who is on the run from a horrible man in her past, and she calls all of her children to her when she is about to pass because the spell that is protecting all of them is about to end. And it is just about her past and the wild, amazing, magical life that she lived. It is almost indescribable. Anything can happen and there's magical creatures and how much magic is real. It's a great time. The writing was incredible. I couldn't put it down because I had no idea what was going to happen from one sentence to the next, for goodness sake. Elise Kova, I read the first 3 books in her Air Awakens series. We have a girl who's working in a library. One day it's discovered she has magical powers. She's fallen for a prince. The country goes to war. She's the only one who has these very specific powers that might be able to save the country. It is a very 3-star average fantasy kind of series. It's fine. Am I amazed or wowed by it in any way, shape, or form? No. Up next, same author as The Lost Apothecary, Sarah Penner wrote The London Sand Society. I actually preferred this book. This particular book is about someone who reads seances that are purely designed to discover who did the deed when people are murdered. We've got murder mystery, we've got spiritualism, we've got seances, we've got is it real, is it fake, what's going on. I really enjoyed it. Even if you didn't enjoy The Lost Apothecary, maybe give Sarah Penner a second chance because I thought this was a huge improvement. Next I read All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. Ashley Flowers and Britt Bennett are the 2 who run the Crime Junkies podcast, and I really enjoy that podcast. I know, true crime. It's kind of like a, should we be listening to this? Should we not be listening to this? I don't listen to it very often anymore. I don't think I've listened to it in months, actually. Anyway, I wanted to support her and read her book, and it's very much based like on the JonBenet Ramsey case. It just wasn't that great. I don't think she's a writer. She tried to change it to some extent. The changes, none of them were good. She's great on the podcast, and it was not for me. After that, I read Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This is about a girl who a fae tries to take her soul, and they only snip away half of it, so she sort of like has half a personality. She's very like monotone and completely doesn't understand social cues, and because she lives in the era of Bridgerton where the way you act must be a certain way, this does not go very well for her, especially when she's looking for a husband. So when they hear of like this magician guy, her cousin's like, oh my god, we can get him to fix you! Romance ensues, and then there's this whole thing where they're trying to like help children at one point, which is really heartwarming. I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. I do plan on reading more in this series. This is I think it's Regency fairy tale series, and I just adored this. After this, I read The Decoy Girlfriend by Lily Vale, and I'm just gonna say don't. If you like the idea of someone being a stand-in for a Hollywood star and falling for the guy that they're supposed to be pretending to be dating, who's an actor, allow me to suggest The Stand-In by Lily Chu. It's on Audible, and it is one of the best audiobooks I have ever listened to in my whole entire life. The couple in there, they are China's golden cinema couple, and honestly, it's so much better. After that, I read The Secret Bridesmaid by Katie Birchall. This is about a woman whose job it literally is to be a secret bridesmaid. She inserts herself into the lives of a bride who is in desperate need of a bridesmaid because she doesn't have a lot of female friends and also needs a lot of help dealing with people or dealing with the organization, but she doesn't want to hire a wedding planner for whatever reason. In this particular case, she is doing this for a very upscale wedding that is pretty much famous and in all the London papers. And did I mention that this bride-to-be has a very, very, very handsome, charming brother. But it really is more about the friendship between her and the bride, which is a refreshing change, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. After that, Fourth Wing, need I say more? I did give it 5 stars, then you can judge me all you want, but it is the mashup of all the fantasy we've ever read and enjoyed. It's enemies to lovers. I loved it because of the chronic pain rep, but you know what? There was no wallowing. Instead, we got Violet, who gets to be the heroine instead of the damsel in distress, and I thought that was fantastic. Any book where there's a love scene that's so passionate that lightning lights a tree and some curtains on fire, it's gonna be a win for me. Fire Falling was book 2 in the Air Awakened series by Elise Kova. It was worse than the first book. Renee Audier, The Wrath and the Dawn, I have talked about in the past, so I will not bore you. Same with Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. This was too gritty, too dark, I did not enjoy it, and too YA. Dark King by C.N. Crawford. This is about a girl who used to be a sea princess-ish kind of thing, and one day Fae King comes and kidnaps her. It's very enemies to lover, very snarky, lots of banter, and it's leading up to what very much looks like a love triangle in the second book. It was okay. I was expecting a little more. We'll see where the second book heads. Six Crimson Cranes, I have already talked about. One of my favorite reads of the year. Happy Place, you saw me cry over. Boy, that was fun for everyone. Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is part of her Chestnut Springs series, and I will be talking about all of these books in an upcoming video. Just know that I do really enjoy them. Well Played by Jen DeLuca. This is the second in a series that follows a Renaissance fair that comes to town every single year. I very much preferred the first one because it was about a girl and a guy who are enemies to lovers, and the guy dresses up as a pirate. How am I not gonna love that more than a girl who spends most of the book apart from this guy? And it's also like a mistaken identity thing, which leads to like that whole third act misunderstanding breakup thing, which I hate. After that, Riley Thorne and the Dead Guy Next Door by Lucy Score. I actually think this is Lucy Score's strongest series. I know, look at me with the controversial opinions. This is about a reluctant psychic who, with the help of a very hot private investigator, is about to be solving a murder because she can see the dead body and talk to him. This is absolutely hilarious. I have no idea why these are not more popular. We have got 3 popular genres all in one, okay? We've got romance with plenty of spice. We've got cozy mystery, and we've sort of got kind of cozy fantasy, if you'll give me that one. We've got frustrating characters you can totally root for. And you know what? I freaking love Riley, okay? Because she's daring and hilarious, and she feels familiar because she reacts like all of us would in these ridiculous situations that we are put in. After this, we have Lies We Sing to the Sea by Sarah Underwood, which is so foiled it is impossible to show you. Sorry about that. At the end of the Odyssey, when dear sweet Odysseus finally makes it home, he goes and is like, I'm so glad that you're fine, Penelope, but since apparently our maids were taken advantage of by all of your suitors, I can't stand to have them around the house, so I'm going to send our dear sweet son outside, and he's going to remove them from this plan. The island is now cursed, and unfortunately, they must now sacrifice 12 maidens to the sea every single year because we have a very, very, very angry god of the sea. Go Ithaca. Odysseus, you're a frickin' moron. One day, poor Leto becomes one of these women who get sacrificed to Poseidon, and then she wakes up on this island with this mysterious, beautiful girl, and she's like, so, we can break this curse if we go kill the last remaining prince of Ithaca. Fine, no problem. We'll train, we'll figure out our magic, we've got all this water magic that we can use. We'll return to Ithaca together. Melantho, that's the name of the chick she finds on the island. Then the problem is it turns out Prince Matthias, that's the last remaining prince of Ithaca, he's also trying to get rid of the curse, and he cares so much, and he doesn't want to hurt any of the maidens, and he sort of kind of is maybe falling for Leto, and she's maybe sort of kind of falling for him, and this really doesn't make Melantho happy, and what's the girl to do when the guy she's supposed to get rid of is also trying to solve the problem? And it turns out there might be another way to solve everything, and then everyone could live happily ever after, right? No one gets happily ever afters in Greek mythology. This is one of the best Greek retellings that I have seen done. If you're interested in Greek retellings, this is the one to pick up. After this, I read Geekerella by Ashley Poston. It's like a fandom for a made-up sci-fi series. It's about a girl who falls for like the main guy in in the series, hence Geekerella. She like wears a gown. The pumpkin is actually a food truck that has very famous like pumpkin tamales. It's adorable. It's wonderful. Ashley Poston is one of my favorite authors. This is quite possibly the nerdiest thing I've ever read in my life, and I also absolutely loved it, and I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So this is about Kelsier, and he is teaching allomancy, which is the magic of metals. You consume a metal and it gives you different powers, and the Mistborn can consume all metals and use all their different powers. Vin is one of the Mistborn, as is Kelsier, and they're trying basically to stop the Lord Ruler. The Lord Ruler sounds ridiculous, but he's actually flipping terrifying, and this is sort of the book that begs the question, what would happen if evil won? Evil won, and now evil is ruling, and we have people who are trying after 1,000 years to try and stop it. That's Kelsier and Vin. So yes, I gave it 5 stars, but wow, I don't trust you anymore, Brandon Sanderson. Please be kinder to your characters. You are now on the same level as Sarah J. Maas when it comes to how much I trust you. If you did love Fourth Wing, Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden is the book that you are going to pick up next if you still have a book hangover. This is about a bunch of kingdoms that are all named after jewels. They are all in turmoil and fighting with one another. This girl gets kidnapped and flies her way out of her own kingdom on a giant dragon and winds up stuck in another kingdom where she is basically being held prisoner. It is enemies to lovers. The banter is fantastic. Unbelievable monsters. There is found family that is happening here. I loved everything about this book. I cannot wait for A Promise of Peridot. It is coming out soon. Thank heavens. Heartless Elsie Silver's second book. I think this was the single dad trope. The babysitter who eventually falls for the dad. She plays guitar. They're really cute together. Country series usually would not be my thing, but Elsie Silver has changed my mind completely. After that, I read The Princess and the Fangirl, part of that series I was talking about by Ashley Poston. This is about the lead girl in that series and a fangirl, and this is their romance, and it is so cute. Christina Lauren came back with The True Love Experiment. It almost hit 5 stars. I think what happened in this one is there were just kind of too many side characters to keep track of. Basically, this is about a Hollywood love story, which I'm always going to love, and this is about a romance author who gets on a show, and she agrees to be on this show because supposedly she's going to find her true love on it using this DNA app, and she's going to get matched with all these people who have different compatibilities based on the app, and they're going to see if the app matches with the guy she picks in the end. And of course, she ends up falling in love with the guy who's like running the TV show or whatever. After this, I read Cased, The Origins of Art Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. This was a absolute 5-star. If you are looking for a book that is going to explore how America actually is more of a caste system and how it basically functions as a hierarchy and a ranking system, and there are a lot of factors that contribute to it, including class, race, other factors, but essentially it influences everything in our lives, how we treat people, our behaviors, our expectations for ourselves and others. It was really haunting to see the descriptions of Nazi Germany and the caste system over there, and then see that mirror reflected back on America and how certain things really do function in similar ways. And if you think I sound crazy, read the book. After that, I read The Age of Entitlement, America Since the 60s by Christopher Caldwell. I was desperately searching for a book that I could read this past year before politics went really wild in America during a presidential election year, so I could attempt to understand my much more politically conservative parents' perspective and hopefully gain some insight. This was not the book to go about it. I went from attempting to understand to yelling at the book and scribbling counter arguments in the margins. If you're looking for a book to teach how not to make arguments, this is filled with every argumentative fallacy. You'll find them all in here. Just claiming that you're confused about things like cultural appropriation or why we need a term like Ms. when we already have Mrs. or Miss. That doesn't really cut it. You need to make an argument about why we shouldn't have those terms, in my opinion. At worst, he flat out ignored statistics. At best, he didn't cite them. And then he just cut out any counter arguments that he didn't know how to deal with. The book also claims that feminism is a solution without a problem and has to put the words underprivileged and objectified in quotes. But I recommend this one, Her Firewood, if you're chilly this winter. So Shanghai Immortal by A.Y. Chow. It's kind of a charming little story about a girl who has these powers and gets a chance to sort of escape into the mortal realm for a little while from like the realm of the dead and travel through and get a chance to really experience life. She sort of finds love and happiness and joy along the way. It takes place like in the 1920s, so we get all the glitz and glam and the atmosphere is fantastic. We get to see some marketplace stuff. I enjoyed it very, very much. After this, I finally finished the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. and I heard that this book completely and totally went off the rails, and you know, it kind of totally did. But you know what? Pip went through some freaking trauma. By this point, I completely understood her motivation. I completely understood where her character went. This is the ultimate good for you, Pip moment, good for you, Pip book, and I'm not gonna argue. Good for you, Pip. After this, I read Sheets by Brenna Thumler, and this graphic novel was kind of way more heartbreaking than I thought it was going to be. This is about a sweet little ghost, and it's also about a little girl who's living what feels like kind of a very lonely life with her family, and they are struggling with money a little bit and running a laundromat. It's very Halloween. It takes place in the fall. It's so much sadder than I thought it was gonna be, but it's also lovely. Last Word by Taylor Adams. What the hell was this book? This was way too much. I mean, if you want to be thrilled for 300 pages and feel like you can't breathe for the entire time, go for it. Don't make me worry about a dog for an entire book. The writing was way too violent. I'm afraid to rate it 1 star because this is the one about the writer who gives a really bad review and then the author comes for her. Oh god, I hated this book so much. All the Missing Girls I already talked about. 3 Kisses, 1 Midnight, I'm fairly certain I talked about. Pumpkinheads, I know I talked about. 7 Faceless Saints. This is by MK Lob. I love this couple. I kind of wanted to like this more than I did. This is about a killer who is stalking this city that feels very, very much like an older version of Italy. It's called Omobrazia, and they are ruled by the 7 Faceless Saints, except one has kind of been like exiled, and the city is at war. Damien is a captain, and he has a former love in the city who he previously abandoned. So we've got like a second chance love who now hates him for abandoning him, named Roz, and the two of them ultimately end up trying to team up to figure out who this person is who is murdering people throughout the city. I thought that the strongest part of this was some of the ideas behind the 7 Faceless Saints, but we don't see enough of them, and the mystery, kind of Dan Brown, like Angels and Demons feeling almost. I'm kind of curious enough to pick up the next book to see where it goes, but I haven't heard anything about it, so we'll see. After that, I read the next Blood Grace book, Blood Solace by Violet Roth. I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as the first one, but I will definitely keep going because I love them and her pet dog. After that, Girl in the Mirror. For the love of God, don't read this. This book is about a set of twins, and they end up switching places, and one of them gets stuck on a boat that, like, capsizes. No one likes being stuck out on an ocean after a boat sinks. No one wants to read about that either, as it turns out, or at least I sure don't. I must find a book about twins that actually doesn't make me crazy. Dark Corners by Megan Golden. This is about an investigator named Rachel, and when a social media influencer goes to visit this guy in prison who's about to be released. He originally was like suspected in the murder of 6 women, but they could never get him for it. She gets involved and she's like, yeah, I'll totally help and see if I can find out what happened to this social media influencer, since, you know, really suspicious that like she went and visited the suspected murderer and then like she disappeared right before he got out of jail. I did not see what was coming. I did not predict stuff with this one. It was good. It was just really good. I really enjoyed it. I should check out more stuff in that series or by that author. After that, I finally finished the series by Ashley Poston that I was talking about. This is Bookish and the Beast. This is about the new guy who comes into the series and is playing the villain, and he sort of takes on that role, and he's living in a town during a break from filming, and one day a girl who's living in that town kind of makes a mess and drops one of his rare edition books in a pool. Her punishment is reorganizing his library, and of course they must spend much time together as a result. You heard me talk about The Wishing Game. After that, I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This is like a second chance romance. The girl goes back to her hometown for the funeral of a boy's mom whom she used to love, and we see a whole ton of flashbacks and how they spent their childhood together. It wasn't like the most memorable thing or the most well-written thing, and while I enjoyed my time reading it, I did not feel compelled to go on and read the next book. I also listened to Reputation by Sarah Shepard. Listening to it I think was a mistake because there were multiple points of view and they were a little tough to keep track of, so I would try reading this if you're interested. But yes, the author of Pretty Little Liars. This was salacious, gossipy, there was a murder, it was dramatic, it was frothy, it was fun. This is what she should be writing if she wants to do adult novels. This was so much better than whatever it was I reviewed in the fall, whatever that was supposed to be. This was fun. This was fun, and it is a murder mystery, so. After this, I did the tandem read of Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn and was thoroughly destroyed by Sarah J. Maas. No one's shocked to hear this. I can't tell you a gosh darn thing about them. This is part of the Throne of Glass series, and you know what? Anyone who is whining about Tower of Dawn, that's because you didn't do the tandem read. It was 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I talked about Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe already with you by Heather Weber. Heartstopper Volume 2 snuck in here. I could not put it off anymore. I know I talked about the nature of witches. And the last book that I did not talk with you about, I'm pretty sure, is She Started It by Cian Gilbert. And this is so bad. There's a video coming up about it with alternatives. So get ready to join me on a deserted island. Make sure to charge your phones well, but I'm pretty sure the deserted islands we're going to will not have cell service on a single one of them. Thank you so much for joining me today for this incredibly long video. That was absolutely ridiculous. I'm pretty sure I just talked about like 150 books. I'm sorry, this was probably a really long video. If you're still here, you deserve a cookie. I wish I could give it to you, but here's your virtual one. I will let you get back to your book now. You certainly deserve it, and I will be getting back to mine. If I want to read over 200 books again this year, I better get on it. Thanks for joining me, guys. Bye.